What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to episode 59 of the Silver and Gold. I'm Josh.
And I'm Mike.
And today we're just going to jump right into the 49ers versus Buccaneers recap. The 49ers won a very close game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and the final score ended up being 23-20. And, the 49ers did have to come back in this one. And, I mean, really, it was a pretty even game, but it was an ugly game. Mike, were you able to catch much of the game? It was very sloppy.
I caught a bit of the second half, really the ending of the game, which was crazy. It was
Yeah.
very back and forth, and for a second there, it looked like Baker Mayfield was going on a legacy drive against the Niners. And I mean, between the Niners penalties, I know I'm jumping straight to the end of the game, but between the Niners penalties, like as that drive kept going, and Baker Mayfield just not going down.
Yeah.
Specifically that fourth down play where Bosa was holding his arm, but Baker was stiff arming him and makes a throw as he's stiff arming. I audibly, I jumped and yelled when White
Bucky
caught the
Irving?
pass. Oh, no, it was White. I think it was
Oh, it was
Rashad White.
White?
I think. And on the replay, you can even tell that he was throwing it to 17, but Rashad White kind of pivoted out of his route and jumped in front of it, caught it, fell back, got the first down. That play was insane. And then 2 plays later, he broke 2 more tackles. There was a face mask. It was insane. But right at the end on 3rd and goal, the Niners were able to stop them, limit them to a field goal and then tie the game. And then the Niners go back down. Brock Purdy, that would be the other thing from this game. I know I jumped to the end, but the biggest thing that I noticed from this game was that Brock Purdy was doing the Brock Purdy things that we want him to do in this game.
Yeah, Purdy ended out, finishing 25 of 36 completions. He had 353 yards, 2 touchdowns, and no interceptions. I think Brock Purdy played a really good game today. I kind of want to, before I go more in depth of the offense, obviously we're going to talk about Christian McCaffrey and what his return sort of means. I do want to talk about that 4th down play that you had mentioned about Baker Mayfield. Dude, what the hell was Nick Bosa doing? Dude, all right, that's such a low effort thing. I was literally sitting there at home. I'm like, dude, tackle him. I'm like, all right, if he doesn't want to go down, you have his arm right there. I don't necessarily advocate to injure people, but if he's not going down, pull him out, pull that shoulder out of the socket. Come on, do something.
Yeah. So that was the other thing about the replay. They showed the angle. They showed the angle from the back where you see the route that Baker Mayfield's throwing to, and it was oh wow, he was throwing to 17, and then Rashad White caught it. But then they show another replay from in front of Nick Bosa, and you can read his lips going, as he's trying to pull him down, he's going, "Did you vote for Trump? Did you vote for Trump?"
My God.
I'm kidding, of course. He wasn't trying to talk to him mid-play, but I don't know what he was doing. That's the only thing I could think of.
Dude, but all right, so I did sort of have a thought cross my mind. I'm I do remember a couple of years ago when he played Baker Mayfield for the first time. There was a beef between the two.
Absolutely.
And Bosa did the flag plant, and I sort of I think I remember Bosa saying, he was on the field saying Baker. Yeah. And then I'm just is he doing that shit again? But in the middle of a play, oh, I've got you right where I want you. Do it. It's almost it was the villain, the villain in a movie who's literally has the hero dead to rights, and then oh, just wait till I get you down. That's what it looked like, but translated into NFL football. It's oh, you're so in trouble now. No, dude, just all you got to do is just bring him to the ground. Game over.
Yeah.
That would have been game right there. All right, we're going to talk more about how the 49ers performed on offense, because, there was a lot of glimpses, I think, of, the Niners, what they can be. And I think a huge thing that helped them this week is Christian McCaffrey was back. Like, I want to say it was the big touchdown to Ricky Pearsall. And shout out to Ricky Pearsall, got his first NFL touchdown today. He was able to get wide open, I think, because the defense just has to account for Christian McCaffrey. So I think they played pretty aggressively on McCaffrey's route. If I'm remembering the play correctly, I believe it was that one. They showed the replay and the corner just kind of like, came up on McCaffrey's route and Pearsall was gone. Unless I'm thinking of a different play where Juwan Jennings had a big catch, but I thought Pearsall played very well today. And just a couple weeks ago, I was asking what's Pearsall's role going to be on this team. And I mean, I don't think Kyle Shanahan anticipated Brandon Ayuk being out for the year, but now it's looking like it's better that we had Pearsall than to not, because I mean, what was Brandon Ayuk's sort of pattern last year? Like he wasn't consistently being fed, but like when he was getting the ball, he was getting open. He was, scoring big plays and, just being very efficient, I don't see Pearsall necessarily being that high volume wide receiver. I see him being like the efficient guy who, he's going to separate on man-to-man coverage and sort of step into that Ayuk role. That's the way I see it. But, Juwan Jennings also had a hell of a day today. And you could kind of tell that he was playing a little bit banged up because, like, I felt like there was different points in the game where he was kind of coming in and out. Pause. But Juwan Jennings had 7 catches for 93 yards, didn't have a touchdown, but, that comes out to 13.3 yards, per reception. Ricky Pearsall, going back to him, he had, 4 catches, 73 yards, obviously had the big touchdown. McCaffrey was a big factor in the pass game, 6 catches, 68 yards. Deebo Samuel, we'll talk about him more because obviously there is something that completely overshadowed this game, in my opinion. Like, all right, we'll get to it. But Deebo Samuel had 5 catches, 62 yards, and Kittle had 3 catches, 57 yards, and a touchdown. And that touchdown,
that was great. That was great.
Yeah, that's a play right there where Brock Purdy is going to be at the negotiation table this offseason.
Yep.
But I mean, yeah, Purdy played a hell of a game. I thought like maybe at first he was running a little bit much and was a little indecisive, but maybe guys just weren't getting open, but really settled in. I mean, he threw for 350 yards. So, good on Purdy. And I guess we'll move on to special teams because a big reason why this game was very close was because the special teams was horrible. There was a muffed punt, I believe, in this game. There was, I want to say it's a muffed punt. If I'm wrong, correct me in the comments. But there were 3 missed field goals by Jake Moody. And every single time he goes up to kick a field goal, it is, he's very inconsistent, I would say. Like, he's been good for the most part this season. Last year, he had a rough stretch, and then obviously in the Super Bowl missed a PAT. I kind of felt like, all right, people kind of say that he kicked it low, but it did technically, I think, get blocked. But yeah, I just don't feel confidence whenever Jake Moody has to come in and kick field goals, right? So literally Jake Moody, I think, showed a tremendous amount of resiliency at the end of the game by nailing the game-winning field goal, because that's really what the game came down to. But also Jake Moody had to overcome not just his own adversity, but his teammate coming over. And I mean, all right, it's the elephant of the room of this show right now. Deebo Samuel, I guess, came over and said some words to Jake Moody. And then Taybor Pepper obviously did not like what Deebo Samuel had to say to Jake Moody. And Taybor Pepper, a fellow special teams player, he went and defended Deebo Samuel, and then Deebo Samuel comes up and then like puts his hand on Tabor Pepper's throat. It kind of looked like a punching motion or shoving motion, and I have to. That's unacceptable, dude. That you should never be putting your hands on your own teammate. Unless you're picking them up or encouraging them. Let alone in public, right in front of the entire world's watching. It's not like a national broadcast. It's a local broadcast. Whoever's tuning into the game, it's not a primetime game, but there should never be an excuse for you to show up your teammate like that. Deebo put himself above the team, and it's selfish. And then, I think Kyle Shanahan was asked about it after the game, and I guess he said they'll handle it on the plane if it hasn't been handled already. But I want to give props to Taybor Pepper, who stepped up and defended his teammate, because I don't think that'll help. I think that you should be encouraging your guys to to play better, not talking shit to them, kicking them while they're down. And
Yeah.
I mean, if Jake Moody does not sink that game-winning field goal, I mean, he's probably not on the team. Going into next week. I don't know, because the 49ers invested that draft capital into him. I don't know how much that factors into him still being on the team. I still feel like they should actively look for his replacement, because I just don't feel confident in him. But there's no place for putting your hand on on one of your teammates. It's horseshit. What do you think, Mike?
Yeah, I was honestly confused as far as what was going on. I just kind of field goal missed, look back, and all of a sudden I see like a replayed slow motion of Deebo throwing, his hand at the dude's throat, and I'm like, whoa, wait, your teammate? Like that just seemed random to me. So you explaining that he was, talking to Moody, and then the long snapper defended him, that makes much more sense, because I was just confused as to what was going on, but I was kind of, sidetracked and a little busy, so I couldn't really just stop what I was doing. Like, what's going on with Deebo? Like, I have him on my fantasy team, but I was like, I'm sure I'll get more info as we go,
Mm-hmm.
But, to your point, it's definitely not acceptable. I don't know why. Like, it would make sense if, but of course, okay. It would have made more sense to me if the long snapper, I don't know his name, if the long snapper, no offense to him, did that motion towards Deebo, right? Hey, you're coming at our teammate sideways, stop. And Deebo doesn't stop, and then he puts his hand on him, right? Like, I would have been like, oh, okay, like that kind of checks out. But the fact that it's Deebo doing it to him, when the long snapper, when the long snapper is the one who's defending his other teammate, and just trying to be like, hey, like I don't know what the hell was said. For all I know, the long snapper could have said some bad shit, but I doubt it. I think honestly what probably happened, if I had to guess, but we might never know, is Deebo said something stupid to Moody, like, bro, why can't you make a kick or something like that? Which that was the other thing I was gonna say is like, I know in our group chat, guys were talking about like, man, Moody just missed his third. Like, dude's probably gone tomorrow. And I was kind of sitting there like, I get it, but like that's why being a kicker in the NFL is hard. Like I know they always seem like layups, like you just expect the kicker to make it, but they're really not layups, To me, it's just like, well, he had a bad game, and receivers have bad games. Hell, I think Devontae Adams had like one catch for 0 yards or something like that today. He had a bad game, right? Running backs have bad games. Offensive linemen have bad games. Do we just cut them because they have one bad game? I get it. If it's a full half season of just consistently bad games, yeah, you cut him. With a kicker, I get your point of like, I want to feel a little bit more confident when he's stepping up to do his job. And right now you don't feel confident, and that sucks. But I do think because of the capital spent on him, I don't see Shanahan cutting him unless he has unless next week is a 4 missed field goal game. Then it looks bad, right?
I mean, today
But
was a 3 missed field goal game, and I really don't care about the draft capital that we spent on him at that point. I'm just, I'm using that as a way, like, that's the only way that they can justify, in my opinion, continuing to run it back with him that I can see. But if they're gonna they lost a football game last season, against the Cleveland Browns, and it was off a game-winning field goal. Well, what would have been a game-winning field goal, but Jake Moody missed. And I just don't. I mean, this is kind of a trend with him. And I mean, luckily, he was able to get it together for the final kick of the game, which is the one that mattered the most. But they're probably not in that position if he is able to make those field goals earlier. And all right, so I kind of see this as like a confidence issue. I don't know. This is just my interpretation. Maybe it's a mechanical issue with Jake Moody. I'm not a kicker expert, but when I look at him lining up for kicks, I always see his head down, and he just doesn't exude confidence. And I mean, it could just be that's just kind of how he looks when he makes a kick. That's kind of how he looks when he doesn't make a kick. Like, he's just kind of the same guy. But to me, it doesn't portray a lot of confidence. And I think Deebo Samuel doing that, I think all right, you are essentially putting the entire blame of the game on Jake Moody. Jake Moody scored more points today than Deebo.
Right.
Obviously Deebo is all right, if it had to be one has to go, they're not letting go Deebo over Jake Moody. Like, I'm not trying to be ridiculous right now.
Yeah, Deebo's a $28 million man, and Moody's what, like a not even $1 million man per year?
Yeah, but what it shows when you do something like that, it shows that you're not a team. And that has been sort of a question mark that has been out there this season. This team is so talented, and they're not winning all their games. They're letting go of games, and they just kind of, in some ways, seem like a big collection of talent who's underperforming.
Yeah.
And I think there's a big aspect to uniting and being cohesive and playing together and chemistry. And when you do shit like that, like when you play football, you're supposed to know that the guy beside you has got your back. I get it. The NFL's a business. Like, these are guys that are just, they're going to work. But if Deebo cares that much, he should put his energy to something a little bit more positive for his teammate than, all right, Taybor Pepper did exactly what Deebo should have done. He should have stood up for his guy to anybody outside of the team. Instead, he was over there fighting with the guy who is supposed to be sharing the common goal to win the game. And then I want to add this this context that that Jesse Naylor also has a great YouTube channel. It's Last Second Sports. Go subscribe to him. He lives in Tampa, so I 100% believe that he was at the game. He does live streams with Grant Cohn all the time. So this was Jesse Naylor's tweet. He said, "It wasn't just a scuffle. Afterwards, Deebo was on the special teams and defense side of the sideline, taunting Tabor/Moody." So this was after their scuffle, laughing, pointing, and dancing, all after being asked to leave. Came back 3 or 4 times to do so. Do I think it's the end of the world? No. But that's the truth of what actually happened. It was right in front of me. What do you think about that, Mike?
Well, I think that's where I was kind of going with it earlier, and then I went on the tangent about, the kickers' jobs in the NFL and them being hard. I just figured obviously Deebo did what he did. He came at Moody, and then the long snapper defended him. And what I think might have happened is the long snapper said one little thing like "get out of here" or something, maybe just to tell Deebo what to do, and he just snapped. And that's when
Yeah.
he put his hand on him. Just one little thing, not even like something derogatory or anything. Just get the fuck out of here, or like, what are you doing, dude? Anything, or just like get out
Yeah.
of here, like And like I remember on the receiver show, like they showed when the Niners played the Browns last year pre-game, Deebo going out of his way, like there was some pushing and shoving, and Deebo just comes out of the cuts and headbutts a dude with his helmet, like out of nowhere. And it was like, what the hell was that, dude? Like just he's I don't know. There is definitely a thing with wide receivers being divas. And I think that when receivers start, pushing on or damn near chokeholding their own teammates, there's clearly a problem there. Like nothing, well, I shouldn't say nothing, but not much can warrant Deebo doing that to his teammate. And I just think, I don't know, it's a Deebo problem. That's what I think.
Mm-hmm. Just to put it into perspective a little bit, I liked this this tweet that I saw earlier from Coach Noah Johnston on Twitter. If Deebo had dropped 2 touchdowns, Warner came over and was talking shit, and then Chris Conley stepped in and had Deebo's back, you would be applauding that. Pepper was protecting his guy and may have been the savior of the last little bit of confidence that Moody had to make the final field goal.
Yeah.
I agree. Taybor Pepper, honestly, shout out to him. He did the right thing. Always protect your guy. And yeah, dude, I don't know. I'm not a psychologist. I don't know if that was the last bit of confidence that Jake Moody had, or because we don't really know these guys. But I don't know, dude. It just bothered me so much. And then I kind of think about Shanahan was asked about it after, and obviously I told you they would settle it on the plane or something like that. But I guess what bothered me about it is just that the first thing that he said when he was asked about it is that he didn't see it, and I'm just like instantly in my head, I'm like, dude, get your team together. This is your team. You're not just a coordinator. You're the head coach of the San Francisco 49ers. Your team is fighting each other, and you're just burying your head in the playbook. What is that?
And
be a leader.
They were
that is not being a leader. Obviously, it
Yeah.
sounds like he's going to be more involved after the fact, but in the middle of the game, I think that's something like Andy Reid last year in the playoffs. Travis Kelce threw his helmet. Andy Reid, the equipment staff person went to go grab his helmet, and Andy Reid went over and grabbed his helmet and said, "No, don't give that to him." And that's Travis Kelce.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if I were one of the coaches, whether it's the wide receiver coach or Kyle Shanahan, like I feel like if I saw Deebo doing those things, whether it's just putting the hand on the long snapper and then proceeding to, dance and like make fun of them, which is very odd. I would just tell him to sit the fuck down and watch Juwan Jennings go play for him. Like we don't need you right now. If you're going to act like this, I can make a fucking example of you.
Yeah.
Moody's still going to go out there and kick the fucking kicks. You're going to be on the fucking sideline watching. Like, if you're going to act like that, that's what I would do. Yeah. But, and then if you have a problem, like the little joke that kind of came in my head right as you were like explaining everything was like, man, we did just pass the trade deadline. Like, not really a joke, but more of like, is this Deebo kind of like somehow being like, well, now I can act however I want because they're not going to trade me? I don't know. I doubt it, but I think this was just a momentary, sign of frustration for Deebo. You know, he's a guy that wants to win just like everybody in the league. And I think he saw somebody, you know, while they were down, and he was willing to kick them, you know, that being Moody. And you have a teammate, the long snapper, whose name I keep forgetting, and I'm sorry.
Taybor Pepper,
Who
actually is a good long snapper. I've never seen him like do. I haven't seen a botch snap. Knock on wood. You know, don't need that to start happening now. But you know,
but
Taybor
kudos
Pepper
to him.
Does his job, puts his head down. You know, obviously, kind of. You know, some people just don't like Taybor Pepper, but I mean, dude. He performs, does well. I remember right before him, it was like Kyle Nelson. And towards the end of Kyle Nelson's, you know, tenure with the 49ers, he was like snapping the ball into the ground. You know, it was sliding. Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, all right. So if you are Deebo Samuel, what is the appropriate way to approach Jake Moody in that moment, in your opinion?
Don't approach him.
Like, I disagree. I mean,
if you want to say something positive. Like, I don't see any point to Deebo thinking, you know, I'm sure like the fans, like I said in our group chat, we were like, Moody's cooked. He's done. 3 missed field goals. Like, these guys are going to lose because of this fucker. Like, we were thinking it. I'm sure there are players on the sideline like Deebo who are thinking it. Like, what is wrong with this dude? But what's the point as the teammate to go over there and tell him whatever he told him? You suck. Why do you suck? Why are you missing these field? Like, you're making us lose. Whatever you said.
Yeah, we're over here putting in this hard work, and you're costing us the game. It's probably something along those lines.
Yeah, but like, what is the positive outcome of that relative to just going up there and being like, hey man, you're gonna drill the next one, you know?
Yeah.
What there's no positive outcome of what Deebo did. There's nothing positive of that.
If Deebo wanted to be a good leader in that moment, he would have reassured Moody that he was going to make the next one. You know, hey man, you know, we really need you in order to win this game. Whatever you have to do to get it together, you know, you're going to make the next one. Just keep working, you know? We trust that you'll get it right. We have faith in you. You know, re-encourage the guy. I get it. It's like you want to hold them accountable, but then you start putting hands and fighting everybody. You know, kickers are like the one position where you should not mess with them mentally. Because kickers, besides quarterback, is like 100% mental, because 95% mental. You know, whereas they just need to lock in here and go through the muscle memory in the exact way with the bright lights, you know, shining on them, and everybody, you know, the whole world's watching, right? You mess with that, you're just making it worse. So, I mean, do I think Deebo Samuel is a bad guy? No. I think Deebo just had a bad moment. Like, this should not reflect on like, I guess, the entirety of how the fan base feels about Deebo, but I think that what he did today was unacceptable. I think that he should learn from what he did. I think he should apologize to Jake Moody if he hasn't already, and should apologize to Taybor Pepper for putting his hands on him, because there's never any room for that. It's one thing to get into a verbal altercation, but you're putting your hands on your brother, you know? Yeah. Or at least you guys are supposed to be brothers. That's how football teams are supposed to be. But we're in 2024 in the NFL, and it's a massive business. I get it, dude. Some people are there to just collect checks.
Yeah. And I think this would be a much bigger story
if they had lost.
Had the defense not held up on that final third down at the end of the game. Like, and you know, that's not on Moody, right? That's not on Deebo. That's on a completely different section of the team. And they held up. just barely at the end. They bent, but didn't break, right? They allowed the game-tying field goal, but then Purdy and the offense got it done. And Moody sunk the final field goal. That's the field goal that mattered, Really, yeah, it would have been nice to have one or two of the other ones, but hey, you guys snuck out with a win. It could have been so much worse because had you guys lost, I think you'd be 4-5 right now.
Yep.
And the schedule's not getting any easier coming up. So, that was a huge win. And I guess point of that, just had they lost, you guys, the Niners would have looked like an incohesive team, like a very broken team right now, even with McCaffrey coming back, which is something we still have to talk about.
Yeah. I wasn't a big fan of the game plan of Christian McCaffrey. But just to sort of wrap up the whole Deebo thing, I thought, we spent a lot of time focusing on how Deebo didn't pick up, his teammate, right? In sports, I feel like there's a lot to be said about it goes a long way when you're able to do things that mitigate your teammates' mistakes. You pick them up while they're down and you try to fight together because mistakes are going to be made on the football field. Mistakes are going to be made in any court, any field, in any sport. So, like, for example, Juwan Jennings, I think really picked up, the offense. He played very well today, especially playing banged up. George Kittle, there was a play where Brock Purdy overthrew him, and Kittle went up and got the ball. Like, he like kind of had to tip it to himself a little bit, but he made that catch. That could have easily been intercepted, but George Kittle had extra effort and picked up Brock Purdy. It wasn't a great throw.
There was a huge play on the final drive, I want to say, of this game where Purdy got stripped, and it was kind of funny and like slow motion.
That's what it was.
Crawling.
That's what it was.
Jennings.
Yeah,
Juwan
Jennings went. Yeah, so that's exactly the moment. I couldn't quite think of it off the top of my head, but that's the exact moment where Juwan Jennings picked up his quarterback. Because had Brock Purdy lost that fumble, the Niners probably lose the football game.
Yeah, and then Deebo's punching him.
Yeah, and then who else is like? That's another thing too. You're sending a message to the rest of the team that, like, you guys are under Deebo's supervision. This is his, it's his sort of boot camp,
He's coming for the chain.
Yeah, he's coming for your throat, quite literally. But, so going back to...
I just imagine the Friday music, dun, 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 dun. Like just Deebo walking down the hall. All the guys like, oh, fuck, there he is.
Yeah. Yeah, but so Deebo knows it's unacceptable. Well, at least I hope that he learned that lesson. And if not, like I said, dude, Kyle Shanahan's got to get his team under control. Shanahan should feel embarrassed for what happened on the sideline.
Oh, yeah.
I think Deebo should also feel embarrassed.
That was my other thing. Like, it looked to me like, maybe you can confirm this for me. Because I didn't really get to watch the replay like a bunch or like what exactly fully happened, but it looked like it was on the field. Was it on the sideline or was it
on the sideline?
Okay. So it was probably like them in passing, right? Like Moody and the long snapper like walking back in passing, and Deebo probably said something, and then the long snapper says something back, and then hands are put on people.
I wouldn't be able to tell you like where it first occurred or who approached who, but like I mentioned with Jesse Naylor, afterwards Deebo was on the special team / defensive side of the field, taunting and doing all that stuff after being asked to leave, and he kept coming back. So
that alone is annoying and stupid, but it just, when I saw the replay, it looked to me like it was on the field, and I was like, damn, did Deebo like jog out there just to talk shit to his own teammate? Like, that's wild. Either way, it's wild, but I was just like, dude, what are you doing?
You know who would have gotten Deebo to, like got him to calm down, or would have at least, punished Deebo?
Uh, my
I
first
already
thought is
mentioned
like
him.
Joe Staley. Okay. Well, Brandon Ayuk.
No. Coach Andy Reid.
Oh yeah.
I mentioned Andy Reid already. Kyle Shanahan did nothing about it, and Deebo's going over and doing it over and over. Where there's no discipline there. So I don't know. I guess you can just do whatever you want to whoever you want, and I just don't agree with that philosophy personally. But hey, I'm not the professional. The coach is. So let's see here. In terms of wrapping up like the game, the 49ers were able to limit Baker Mayfield to a very poor game. 18 of 29 passing, 116 yards for 1 touchdown. I wanted to bring that up too because you said that Baker looked like he was going to have a legacy drive. The Niners made him miserable all game, and I sort of think back to like the preview that we did last week, and I was like, yeah, I just think this is like a good matchup, and the Niners are playing the Buccaneers at the right time where they're missing their 2 starting wide receivers.
Yeah.
And Baker's been playing great this year, but he did not play great today, minus that 1 drive. So but the 49ers were kind of lucky in a way that the Buccaneers went away from running back Bucky Irving, because Bucky Irving had a great game today, and he was killing the 49ers. And he had 13 carries, 73 yards, and a touchdown. And Rachaad White also did get a touchdown, obviously the other running back. But that was a receiving touchdown, and he was much less efficient on the ground. So Rachaad White, 10 carries, 31 yards. And then his receiving was 6 receptions, 39 yards, and a touchdown. Cade Otton, I think, played a pretty decent game. The 49ers made the adjustment because early on in the game, they were going to Cade Otton a lot on 3rd down. And there was a couple plays in a row where it just felt like, man, it was Otton. So Bucky Irving was slightly involved in the passing game, 3 receptions, 14 yards. And yeah, I mean, there were other people who got involved. I won't necessarily focus on them because, I mean, it's not the most relevant, thing. But 49ers got outrushed in McCaffrey's return. And I kind of want to talk about the carry distribution too. McCaffrey, after coming off what almost seemed like it was just going to be season-ending, sort of Achilles tendonitis scare. Well, he did have Achilles tendonitis, but bilateral too in both legs. He just came in and had like a full-on workload. He wasn't so efficient on the ground. 13 carries for 39 yards. But I mean, you're running against Vita Vea. So the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defensive line, I feel like, has been a hard defensive line to run against. And this kind of goes, I feel like, hand in hand. We've sort of talked about like how off-season preparation sort of makes an impact. McCaffrey hasn't probably gave it a full go in God knows how long. You know what I mean? Because he's still, I'd have to imagine there has to be some psychological thing where like any misstep can, re-aggravate the injury. But maybe I'm just overthinking it, but it held him out for 9 weeks. Let's see. Brock Purdy was the second leading rusher. So that's sort of my, where I'm kind of going at. 13 carries for McCaffrey, 4 carries for Purdy, obviously off scrambles. Deebo Samuel was the next leading rusher, at least in terms of out of the backfield. And then Jordan Mason, who has been doing great all season long, Isaac Guerrero, who has been emerging, they each only get 1 carry. So I get it. McCaffrey is the best running back on the team, and the offense, a lot of stuff on the offense gets opened up with him. But I do feel like Jordan Mason has earned a little bit more carries. And I mean, I'm kind of okay with Guarendo's, I guess, volume going down significantly because he's not as needed. But, I would like to see Jordan Mason still get some more carries because they could really, I feel like he's the perfect in between the tackles runner for this football team right now. I don't know. What do you think, Mike, about the way they used McCaffrey today?
I mean, I just it's odd that they didn't utilize Guarendo or Jordan Mason, who I want to say Jordan Mason played today, right?
Yeah, I just had he had 1 carry for 5 yards.
Yeah, so I don't know. I feel like, I mean, I guess it's a vote of confidence that McCaffrey's fully healthy. The fact that he was just clear cut the number one, no questions asked. I don't know. I don't have much thought to it, I guess. I just think that's good that they feel confident in his health, and I would say because Tampa is not the easiest run defense to go against, and just the fact that with more time, I would assume, McCaffrey get more and more fresh, if you will. And
back into game shape too.
Yeah, back into game shape to where, give it maybe 1 or 2 more weeks, and I think he'll be really good.
Mm-hmm. Let's get to some comments, and then we can get to the Seahawks preview, right? Niners Seahawks preview. All right. Papa J says, "What up, guys? Papa J, welcome back." Sort of laughing at the whole Baker. I mean, if you remember that, I remember it vividly.
So, oh no, I remember it.
Yeah, Papa J says, Pearsall of God opened because he was as fast as a speeding bullet. Too soon? I mean, hey, he lived. I mean, it's kind of like it would be too soon, I'd say, if he didn't, but then we wouldn't be talking about him today, I guess. But I mean, the fact that he kind of gets that street cred, I feel like only helps his image in the NFL. The fact that he survived that, that was almost like an insane tragedy. So I don't know, maybe I'm misrepresenting how we should be looking at that, but I mean, it was still a horrible situation. Do you guys see Juwan Jennings and Pearsall being the number 1 and 2 wide receivers for the 49ers in the future? That is a really good question because we have been talking about Deebo possibly getting traded. What do you think, Mike?
Well, I think I know Ayuk's injury was worse than it was bad. It's not a good. It was like everything, right? It was like
ACL, MCL, and meniscus.
Oh man, yeah, meniscus. Okay, so it's not out of the question that week 1 next season he's not playing. I think from what I saw on Twitter, there was a one of those football recovery doctor what do you ever call them? But
fantasy
he was like,
doctor.
Yeah, basically fantasy doctor or whatever. He was like, yeah, I think he should be back around late training camp. I was like, okay, that checks out, I guess, whatever. But I think Ayuk is here to stay because of his contract. And I think with the draft capital, Pearsall is certainly in line to become a starter. In the long term, right? And then I think, especially after this game, it just feels obvious that Deebo will get traded this upcoming offseason because, like I said, the trade deadline just passed, so they can't trade him now, right? And then I believe he has 1 year left on his deal at that point. So it's like, why not get something for him, right? Especially if Pearsall keeps getting better and better. And then you'll have Juwan Jennings with 2 or 1 year left on his deal that he's extended this offseason.
I want to say it's like 2 or 3. Let me look that up.
Yeah, that's where my head is. I want to say it's at least 2 years. So I mean, JJ will be on the team next
2
year.
years. 2 years.
2 years. So next year would be his final year under contract. And then you also have Jacob Cowing, who isn't getting much play time, but he feels like a very up-and-coming type guy. Like, just give him time, and he'll probably hit the field. But, to the point here, I'd say I can see it being Ayuk, obviously, is the number one whenever he's healthy. Pearsall is the number two, and Juwan Jennings is the starting, slot guy to essentially replace Deebo. So I guess to answer not as the number 1 and 2, but more as the number 2 and 3. But maybe week 1, if Ayuk can't go, they are the 1 and 2.
Yeah, I think considering the Brandon Ayuk aspect of this, I do think it's very possible that these are the top, the 2 receivers in the depth chart until Brandon Ayuk is back.
Yeah.
Papa J says, I definitely don't have the confidence with Moody as I did with Robbie. I agree, because Robbie Gould, it's like every single time he got out there, he was going to make the kick. You didn't really have to worry about it, aside from like a couple injuries that he had here and there, like with his groin. But the only thing that like got me excited about Jake Moody and why I sort of felt like it was a good decision to at least replace Robbie Gould as a kicker is because, I mean, I felt like everything inside of 50 yards was money for Gould. But I think about the situations where you need to kick like 50 plus, and the Niners weren't doing that with Robbie Gould. And then Jake Moody, apparently has the leg to do 60 plus yarders, or at least that was sort of the idea. And I don't know. I liked that concept, but if he can't consistently hit on, everything inside the 50, then how are you going to expect him to consistently hit on things outside the 50? So I don't know. Consistency is key, in my opinion, when it comes to kickers. Deebo needs to put him, Jake Moody, on his or Taybor Pepper or both. I'm gonna bunch them as them on the podcast and apologize publicly. I agree. I think that would be a good way to like squash this and like, if they're like friendly and everything, but maybe this is the last that we'll ever hear of it, and they'll just let it die out after today or after a couple days. Let's see here. RNJ podcast says, salute fellas. RNJ, thank you for tuning back in. We will get to Raider stuff. We'll preview the Raider game after we're done with the 49ers stuff. Let's see here. Kittle said that it was all a head game. Speaking of Moody, do you think that that's what it is? Yeah, no, I hope I answered this question already, but I kind of feel like it's a mental thing with Moody. He needs, he just needs that confidence right now. I think that he has the leg for it. It's just all about making sure that when the pressure is on, you're able to, keep on to your muscle memory and, get it through consistently. Fonzie says, what's up, guys? Fonzie, always a pleasure to have you. Let's see. Deebo lost some respect today for sure. Yeah. I feel like that should be that's an appropriate feeling to have after what we witnessed. And dude, there's so many people who are like shitting on Taybor Pepper. Dude, like who does he think he is? Blah, blah, blah. Deebo did the right thing, holding people accountable. No, Deebo did not do the right thing. I'm sorry. If you, honest to God, believe that, I don't know. That to me, that's just wrong.
That's weird.
Let's see. Yeah, these are his teammates and not just some dude. Exactly. You're supposed to be a team. You're supposed to gel together. Let's see. Deebo was out of line. Talk to them on the sidelines, but not like that. 100%.
Yeah.
Pepper did the right thing, but at the same time, as a leader of the team, I think Deebo did right by also getting on Moody's case. Yeah, I mean, I think Mike and I kind of covered the appropriate way that Deebo could have done it, and even if Deebo would have done what he did if he would have like been bickering with Taybor Pepper and like, you know, they're just kind of like yelling, I feel like that's way different than grabbing a guy by the throat. You know, I don't think there's room for that. But like I said, with kickers, I don't think it helps to put more pressure on them. You know, you should be trying to make them a little bit more comfortable, in my opinion. But I'm not a professional kicker, so I don't know what it's like. Pia says Kyle doesn't care. Yeah, I mean, he certainly didn't act like it on the field and maybe brushed it off as nothing. I think brushing it off as less than it was is probably the correct response. But, you know, I think in the middle of a game, you have to get your team together. I think you have to get them under control. That's my opinion.
Yeah. Do we know that Shanahan knew about it? Like, I know that the one guy that you brought on the screen said that, you know, he was told to leave and he kept going back and like dancing or pointing, whatever. Like, do we know that Shanahan even knew about it?
Well,
Because I'm
Shanahan
sure
said he didn't. He said he didn't see it, and somebody told him about it.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm Shanahan, I mean, I already said what I would have probably done. Like, if I realized like I had a player doing that, but if I were Shanahan, I would be mad. So
it's
if
embarrassing.
He's just
it's
embarrassing. If he's nonchalant about it, it's just like, what are you doing as a coach?
Yeah. Let's see. A lot of great comments today. I'm like reading through here. Yeah. Time will only tell, you know, how Kyle handles it from here. So hopefully we never have to speak about it again. I'd say that would be the best thing. But, you know, if there is some sort of public apology,
I think this is grounds for like, you could suspend Deebo next week. Not that they will, but I could see, like, remember.
I mean, to make an example out of him, you know,
yeah,
like for sure. But, you know, I think that they should, like, it shouldn't have to get to that point. They should handle it behind closed doors, and, you know, they should be able to unite and get past this. It shouldn't have to come to a suspension. What were you going to say?
Yeah.
Antonio Pierce?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, Antonio Pierce, when he said they had to take, or whatever he said about business decisions, yes. You know, and then Jack Jones didn't play for like the first quarter. Like, they could do something like that, but this is the home stretch of the season. I think that's why I would have done what I said I would have done, which was, you know, tell him, hey, the rest of this game, you're sitting the fuck down and you're not going to talk to anybody, you know? But this is the home stretch of the playoffs, right? Of getting towards the playoffs in a playoff hunt. I'm probably not trying to suspend my best receiver currently, you know? So probably whatever disciplinary action there is to be had, probably needs to be vocal and verbalized, and potentially, you know, Deebo apologizing in public.
I think instead of suspending him for a game, like I said, handle it behind closed doors. And the team, I think, has full grounds to fine Deebo. I think that could warrant a fine, in my opinion. Putting your hands on another player who's on your own team, I feel like that's a fineable offense. But that, you know, like I said, that's my opinion. Let's see. That's just football players being football players. There's a lot of emotions and physical outbursts that go around a football team, which is very necessary to win football games and championships. Yeah, I mean, I agree. Like, it's part of what makes Deebo so aggressive as a player. But, like, all right, so, like, similar thing. It's like we kind of look at DK Metcalf right now. Like, DK Metcalf has a reputation now of being like an unhinged player, and it hurts the football team. You know, he will literally grab people by the face mask and like get himself tossed from games. And then this, like, I feel like you're only hurting the team morale, and it does more harm than good, in my opinion. I get wanting to win, but express yourself in a little bit more of in a positive, like more productive way. We can't all be nice and dandy on the football field. I feel like Nick Bosa was being very nice and dandy to Baker Mayfield. You know, could have sacked him, but he didn't. Honestly, to me, Deebo did too much, says Fonzie. Maybe Deebo learned something from 54. You know, I actually did think about that. So, Mike, did you hear the story of last year's training camp? I want to say it was last year, or it might have been the year before, but so they're not supposed to be necessarily hitting each other that hard during training camp. And Fred Warner, I want to say he laid out one of the receivers, right? And then Brandon Ayuk went and fought Fred Warner, like straight up stood up for one of his teammates. Like the offense was getting their ass kicked like all day that day in training camp, or maybe that entire week. And so Ayuk stood up and fought Fred Warner. And I feel like that situation is a little bit different because, one, that's at practice. You know, we see fights in practice all the time. But whenever it's a fight in a game, like, you're supposed to already have that out of your system and everything. You're supposed to have the common goal. You know? Two, Ayuk fighting Warner was in defense of another player on offense because Warner had just knocked his ass to the ground.
Right.
So you know, he's defending somebody else from his own unit, similar to what we just saw Taybor Pepper, you know, do. So yeah. Fonzie says, how much of it is true though? I'm assuming referring to the Jesse Naylor tweet. I 100% believe Jesse Naylor because, you know, I've been watching, you know, his content for a couple years now. He's been doing lives with friend of the show, Grant Cohn. I believe he was there. He said it happened right in front of him. I'm inclined to believe him. I'm willing to give him that benefit of the doubt. I don't see why he would lie about it. Yeah, I don't think he would lie about it. Is what I would say. So, yeah. Let's see. Mike, do you really think that somebody would want Deebo with the money that he's, you know, that's on his current contract?
That's tough. I mean, his situation is very different from Stephon Diggs. Like, that's the first thing I think of is like a receiver getting traded and then renegotiating his deal, you know, with the new team. The difference was the thought process for Stephon Diggs, who still had like 3 years left, but like maybe not many guarantees, but still, you know, big money. They brought it down to just 1 year, and I think maybe it was fully guaranteed. I'm not sure. But the whole idea was like, oh, I'll become a free agent so I can like bet on myself, which sucks for him because he tore his ACL, right? But with Deebo, he already has 1 year left, so it's like there's no positive for him as far as changing the contract. If anything, like that's the only thing that really probably matters other than playing good is that he keeps his contract at $28 million per year, you know? So really it's just a matter of what team can afford that and if they're in a position to make that sort of move. I'll give you a team that can afford it and is in that sort of position, Washington Commanders. I think, you know, they're supposed to have like top 5 cap space next season, and they look like a legitimate playoff team, like a legitimate contender. You know, I'm not saying they're going to go out there and make the Super Bowl this year. They're not, but they could be a surprise NFC Championship game team, you know?
All right. I think in theory, yes, but I don't see them beating the Eagles. I don't see them beating, the Niners in the playoffs. I don't see them beating the Detroit Lions in the playoffs. Maybe not even the Packers. You know what I mean? Like they would have to seriously pull off like a big win in the playoffs in order to get to the NFC Championship. I feel like they're one year away from being a team like that.
Yeah, and that's perfectly fine. Like I'd say they're ahead of schedule by far.
Yeah, they're way
they
ahead of schedule this season.
They should look like the Bears as far as what stage they're at in the rebuild. Like they should look like the Bears right now, and they look like the Eagles, which is crazy. So yeah, they're whatever they do this year, like just making the playoffs is a big win for them. And then if they win a playoff game, it's like, wow, man, like basically last year's Texans. It's them all over again. With the quarterback, young or not young coach, but new coach, all that, right? It's the same story. And it just so happens to be 2 years in a row that those are my quarterbacks that I wanted for the Raiders. So whoop-de-fucking-do. But to that point, like I'll even further reason why maybe Deebo could make sense for Washington is because Adam Peters is their GM. And that's a guy who used to be in the Niners building.
Yeah.
So maybe here's Deebo's available. He's like, shit, dude, I know what he could do for an offense. But, to your point, I wouldn't blame many teams for not wanting to trade for that deal. One last thing I'll say on that though is there can be verbiage in the trade perhaps where just to get a better pick in the deal, the Niners pay for X amount of that contract. So it's $28 million. Let's say the cap hit is $28 million, which it probably isn't. It's something else. They take on half the cap hit, right? So then the team that's taking them on gets, let's say, $16 million instead of 28, right? Or that was horrible math. 14. Hello. They get $14 million on cap hit instead of 28. That makes a difference. And then instead of just giving up a fourth round pick, maybe they give a third. Or instead of a fifth round pick, they give up a fourth, Something like that. I could see that.
Yeah. Fonzie says, tore everything. MCL, ACL, TLC, BBL. Hopefully we get a good Ayuk back. Papa J says, we're stuck with Deebo and Brandon, in my opinion. And I know Fonzie agreed in the comments. I think I don't necessarily know if the restructure of Deebo's contract helps or hurts them in order to move off from him, because I know they recently restructured him. So yeah, I don't know. But last I heard, there was a post June 1st designation that they could have put on him for this year. So I don't know. I feel like Ayuk's here to stay, and Deebo, we'll see. Fonzie says, gold is old news. Stop comparing. I think the reason why they get compared so much is because Robbie Gould, obviously he's retired now. He's not coming back. But, he was the kicker right before Jake Moody. So like any single time that there's going to be a replacement of of any position, they're going to immediately be compared. Saying you want Gold back, or saying you want Gold is like saying you want Joe Nedney back. Yeah, no, I get it. Gold is retired. He's not an option at this point. But in terms of Shanahan, maybe he didn't see it. Shanny had his hands full. Yeah, but there are other coaches in similar situations. Like I mentioned Andy Reid twice now, who would have been aware of the situation and I think would have handled it right then and there. And then Fonzie agreed with you, Mike, saying they should bench Deebo.
Yeah. My fantasy team disagrees, but,
Yeah. And then I agree with this comment from Fonzie. He says, find them and give the money to, the other player's choice of charity. I think that works with me. That would be a productive thing. But ultimately, the most important part is just patch up the relationship. Get the team playing as a team again. Papa J offers his own perspective. We're going to get to a couple more comments here, and then we're going to switch topics. Putting hands on your own teammate is an everyday thing. there's punches and kicks thrown. That's just part of football life. But since this was televised, he definitely should apologize publicly. I do think there is truth to that. But yeah, I feel like in the middle of a game, I think is, like,
Yeah,
how does Deebo help Jake Moody in any single way? Does Deebo know how to kick?
right. Yeah. It's like, stop kicking with your toes, bro. No, I think, honestly, one thing I thought earlier when we were talking about this was, like, I think you asked the question of, like, what good does it do or something like that? And I was like, I mean, no, it's probably something else. But anyways, like, he could have just waited until they got to the locker room, But I
Yeah.
think he allowed his emotions to kind of take over, and he did what he did. And then he got a response out of somebody else, and his emotions got even worse. And he let those emotions take over, He wasn't thinking. I really don't think he was thinking, because I think if a person were to think in that moment, what's best to do here? It's not to belittle your kicker, who might still, and ended up definitely did, need to still win the game. Like, why are you going to put him down? Like somebody said, like, and his last bit of confidence is just gone because one of the stars of the team comes up to him and says, dude, you fucking suck. Like, imagine you're in the NFL, you're just some average Joe, which, Moody isn't just some average guy. He's gotten here and got drafted in the 3rd round for a great reason. But I'm sure Moody, to a degree, probably, realizes he's human. And then some, superstar comes up to you and says, dude, you suck. Whatever he said, right? I know I'd be hurting, dude. I'd be like, oh, okay. But luckily I have this teammate who sticks up for me, and that's good. Point is, Deebo allowing his emotions to take over is very stupid because he got caught on camera. And whatever comes out of this, whether it's nothing or he has to publicly apologize, or he gets fined and all, yada, or suspended, whatever it is, that's because he's being a dumbass. And if he really wanted to do this so bad, he could have waited until after the game when they got in the locker room and did it then. And at worst, it gets reported by a reporter saying, wow, Deebo just laid in on the kicker. But you know what? Like, I mean, for one thing, if you guys had won, he probably calms down and doesn't do it. But 2, at that point, there might have been a lot of fans saying, which there still are, which is stupid, but a lot of fans saying, like, good, But because
Yeah.
we don't have video of it, it doesn't matter. But because we do have video of it, it's like, well, here we are. And people are reacting.
Yeah. Papa J says, Fred used to fight Brandon his rookie and sophomore season. Fred admitted that he only did that because he knew that Brandon was something special and needed to toughen him up. I have heard Fred Warner say that. I think it was like on a podcast or something. But yeah, I mean, hey, it definitely worked last year. Hopefully Brandon Ayuk is able to recover and contribute, keep contributing to the 49ers going forward. I do think Ayuk has special skill sets.
I will say the main difference I have here with, preseason, training camp, and regular season is when you're in training camp and you're going offense versus defense, like, it very much does not feel like, I'm sure, for those players in that moment, that you're on the same team, because you're literally going up against them play after play after play. And you get used to that. You probably get tired of shit. And it's a normalcy. It is normal for teams to fight in training camp. It is not normal for teams to fight in the regular season amongst themselves. So, that's why what Deebo did today is just ridiculous, is because that's not normal. Like, I remember the Washington Commanders, or at the time probably football team, like Jonathan, I think his name's Jonathan Jones. Like, there was some defensive tackles that kind of got at each other and fought for a little bit there. Like, it doesn't happen that often. Honestly, the next closest thing I can think of is Odell Beckham Jr. getting in a fight with a practice field goal net.
10 weeks into the season at that. Yeah. In terms of this situation, but
yeah. But this doesn't happen very often. And I don't, like, personally, no offense, personally, I don't compare this at all to, Ayuk and Fred Warner, because that shit in training camp's normal. This right here is not normal. Like, don't get it twisted. What Deebo did was dead wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And it's unacceptable.
Yeah. Let's see here. I did want to address this comment here from Papa J, who, has been on fire with his comments tonight. He says, Grant and his minions love to blow things up, though. I don't trust anything that those guys say. I will say, I don't have a single negative thing that I can ever say about Grant. Grant has been nothing but generous to me. He's a friend of mine. I've hung out with him, a couple times. He's come on the show. I really appreciate Grant. I don't have anything bad to say about him. I've been called a Grant Cohn minion. I've been a longtime subscriber of his. I love his channel. He does, in my opinion, he does great work. I do know that there's a large portion of the fan base that, doesn't, they just don't like him, but I think, I'm not trying to convince you to like him, but what I like about his content is that sometimes I don't always agree with every single take that he has, but do you agree with every single take that every football media personality has ever given? No. I listen to his stuff with an open mind, and I try to get the perspectives that, he offers an alternate perspective on something that maybe I didn't think about. And, if you don't necessarily appreciate or care for his opinion, it's fine. But I rarely see Grant have an opinion that isn't backed by some sort of reasoning that I'm able to follow. And I'm like, you know what? That's a logical way. That's not the way that I view it, but that's a logical way to view the situation. That's his interpretation. You know what I mean? That's like if you and I both read the same book or watched the same movie and got something different out of it, So, like I said, I love Grant, love his channel. I can't say anything negative about him. I only have positive things to say about Grant. So, you can call me a Grant minion if you want. I've been called worse. People on Twitter, dude, they say some crazy things, but I hope that I hope I'm not coming off as I'm trying to draw sand in the line, either support our channel or don't. No, I don't want to see that, but try to have an open mind, because I feel like if you don't like a certain take that he has, maybe there's other takes that you're upset with the team and he's able to hold the team accountable. Mike, Grant has been great, on our pod, right?
Oh yeah. No, I love Grant. He's been very generous, and I would say what I noticed with him as far as his channels and content is that he's very honest, and he doesn't really I would say he doesn't hold back with his honesty. And in that sense,
I'd say Grant is brutally honest, and sometimes I appreciate to just hear it.
Yeah, he's brutally honest. And there's a word for that, a more kind word for that. He he's just clear with his opinion and what he sees. And really the biggest thing I take away from him is just that he's a good guy. He's a generous guy.
Yeah. And maybe, I guess I would say you don't always have to agree with his takes or anything, but at least it gets the conversation going. People talk about it. And what I love about it is that, he's saying what he believes. He's not in front of a camera just lying to people, making up stats to try to, do public relations for the 49ers. You know what I mean? He may be wrong here and there. He may be wrong a lot, maybe he's wrong a little bit. I guess it just depends. he didn't think Brock Purdy was going to be, good or even possibly make this football team. And Brock Purdy turned out great. But then there were, he was right about Jimmy Garoppolo the entire time. He was like way ahead of the curve on Jimmy Garoppolo not being that good. So I initially thought like, man, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about, And then week 1 happened against Arizona, and then all of a sudden I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna listen to this guy with an open mind. And yeah, no, I will always appreciate his perspective, because I think in life it's good to have multiple different perspectives of things, not just like somebody telling you what you want to hear at all times. And it's cool to just get a range of, some people are saying this, some people are saying that, so yeah, love Grant's content, love Grant, so nothing but positive things. Deebo was just unprofessional. Yeah. Fonzie brings up a great point. Did you guys see after the game, after Moody made the final kick, everyone, was like grouping around Moody except for Deebo. I did notice they panned to Deebo and he looked so upset. I did notice that. He looked very upset after the game, as if like he just got proven wrong. Like literally it was the face. Maybe somebody talked to him, but it was like the face of like I don't know.
I look like an idiot.
Maybe I look like an idiot. That's the face that I kind of got. But interpret it, how you want. We really don't know exactly what was said, but one thing for sure, Deebo did talk to Moody and things were good. Well, I did hear that Deebo talked to Moody. I'm assuming things will be good. And on top of that, Deebo did say that he doesn't take credit for Moody making the last kick. So, yeah, I hope everything's all good. And maybe he already said it, but yeah. Couple more comments, and then we'll get on to the next. These comments are great. These comments are great. I love it. Do you think that maybe we see it as abnormal, when they fight during the season versus training camp because it's televised more during the season?
I think I kind of answered this, but maybe not fully. I honestly don't even remember. But I think it's different because in training camp, you're very much going versus, offense versus defense. So it feels in that moment like I got to beat this dude. Like this is my opponent. Whereas in the regular season, the offense, defense, special teams, they are your teammates. And like, again, there's nothing really positive to come from, beating down somebody on your team, right? Mm-hmm. Or getting in a physical altercation with somebody on your team during the game. Like it's happened in practices many times. I think there might have been a few skirmishes in the regular season. Like I want to say, I definitely remember Cam Newton and Josh Norman getting into it in the past. I don't know if that was regular season or not. It happens, but there's a reason why it becomes like, top NFL news of the day, especially if it's in the regular seasons, because wow, that looks really bad, right? Whereas in training camp, it's just like, oh hell yeah, like they're going at it, like it's getting hectic out there. It's a completely different response because it's a completely different thing,
Mm-hmm.
So,
Fonzie says Grant is a cool dude, but just sometimes, he says some clickbait / ignorant things. He's too emotional for someone who bashes, the team so much. We already talked about Grant a little bit. Nothing but positive things to say about him. One thing I'll say is like, if there is like a title of the video that's clickbait, what I notice is like, it'll just be a question like, is Brock Purdy overrated? And obviously the question is meant to get people wondering. And then you click on the video, and then he gives his opinion, and then you're able to at least, follow the logic of why he says what he says. So, and I'll kind of move forward to Papa J, adding on. One thing that he appreciates about Grant is that he reaches out to other podcasters. He's really good at showing, the 49er or the way 49er podcasting. Yeah. If it wasn't for I'm going to be completely honest, if it wasn't for Grant, this channel would not exist. I don't know if I would have had the courage to start the channel because my first appearance pretty much on YouTube talking about football was on Grant's Cone phone, and then just this whole setup, this is all in a way where a lot of us are Grant Cone clones, but I do disagree with 80% of what he reports. Yeah. I mean, you don't have to agree with it all, and let me see here. No disrespect. We're just we're approaching midnight, and we still, we want to preview the Seahawks games. Papa J says, I wasn't trying to disrespect you. No, I didn't take it in a disrespectful manner. Everybody has the right to their opinion and who they follow and like. I can't judge you for liking Grant if he's done great things for you, but he's just not my cup of tea. And I respect it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I understand that Grant isn't going to be everybody's cup of tea. You know what I mean? His content. And, I'm fully aware of that. And I don't want you to feel like you disrespected me. Even if you said something that I didn't agree with, dude, we all have opinions. You know what I mean? So I'm not going to over here sit on my high horse and act like, oh, since I'm the one on, talking through this lens, I have more, I guess my opinion matters more than you. No, I mean, we're both taking in information and, talking about how we feel about things, it's kind of same thing, but you're just typing it out. I'm putting the comment on the screen. We're taking it. And, at least you are one of the few, who you say, I've been listening to Grant for 4 years and still disagree about 80% of the things that he says. At least you listen, There's some people who just won't listen and they'll talk like they know what they're talking about. At least you have the decency to try and listen. And if you disagree, you disagree, And then there's the people that just don't, they don't even know about his channel. Don't worry, Mike. We're almost through the comments. We're gonna move on. Can you see Mike over there? Look at Mike. He wants to talk about Raiders so bad. No, Mike is dying to talk about the Raiders.
Not really. I was just remembering that I wanted to order something on Amazon before, so I can get it shipped tomorrow. And I completely forgot. Anyways.
And let's see. I don't want to seem like I'm ignoring any comments, but I do want to get to this one. I see the whole Pearsall one, and I think Grant, explained what happened, but let's see. Tom Brady used to yell at his players. The only difference is that nobody talks shit right back to him like Pepper did. As the captain of the team, I would have slapped his ass too, though. I mean, I just disagree with that philosophy. Brady would yell at people, for sure. But that's Tom Brady. That's did Brady do that before ever winning a Super Bowl? I only have more recent memories of Brady doing that after he won Super Bowl number, his third Super Bowl or whatever. But that's Tom Brady, and that's the quarterback of the team. And I don't think that he ever laid a hand on anybody. So, yeah, let's see. But then I would take them aside and apologize. Let's see. It was more of his negativity. Even when we find ways to win, he'll praise Mahomes or Allen, but not he was very, he praised Purdy a lot today. You know what I mean? So, let's go here. On I'm Bro. What's up, bro? Your podcast would exist no matter what. Grant is not Jesus or God. Don't sell yourself short. No, but I mean, he sort of paved the way for me to like have the blueprint to make this channel, and I will always appreciate that. Not only did he make the blueprint and like set the standard for it, well, in my opinion, he set the standard for 49ers YouTuber, and it's kind of a common opinion that the people have. Obviously, Grant's not Jesus or God. I don't see him that way. I see him as a friend. But not only did he sort of pave the way, but he was willing to come on the podcast. I hope the blueprint isn't clickbait. No. If you look at our early thumbnails though, I think like all right, Mike and I sort of had the idea like, man, what's going to attract like attention to get people to come to the channel? And you can see like we did a draft recap for the Raiders that first year, and then like I think the thumbnail says best draft class ever, right? So I mean, no, we're not clickbaiting over here, And then I think the Niners schedule breakdown. It was like Shanahan. It was like Shanahan half as a tank, and like going through like a battleground, and it was like 17-0 ? So our thumbnails has gotten way better, but I do miss like the more comical thumbnails that we used to do. Maybe I'll bring them back. Mike, let's finally talk about the 49ers versus Seahawks. We went on a long tangent about Deebo Samuel and are the 49ers going to play as a team against the Seahawks this week?
It's on Sunday in Santa Clara.
I'm pretty sure it's on Sunday. Let me verify. So 49ers versus Seahawks. It is Sunday, November 17th at 1:05 p.m. in Santa Clara, California.
Yeah. Man. I think this might be the game where DK Metcalf comes back. Also, the Seahawks are coming off a bye week. Man, I mean, the way the Niners played against the Buccaneers in the sense of, being really close to not winning this game. Now you add on 2 field goals and it doesn't feel that way at all, for sure. But I can see this game being a toss-up. That being said, I'm going to pick the Niners.
Yeah, I kind of agree, because we saw just a couple weeks ago, in week 6, the 49ers went into Seattle and were able to win that game. And, it didn't feel like a close game until like the very end. And, I think we had mentioned how like it wasn't that far off from being one of the meltdowns that they had suffered against the other NFC West teams. But I think that they match up very well against Geno Smith, similar to how they matched up well with Baker Mayfield today. I'm not saying Geno Smith isn't a great quarterback or anything. I think he's pretty good, but the Niners just, I don't know. I think that as long as they can limit Kenneth Walker on the ground, not let him have a big day, if they can, I mean, Charvarius Ward should be playing in this game, coming up on Sunday. Charvarius Ward has locked down DK Metcalf. There's all these edits. I love these. I love seeing these edits where, it's like Charvarius Ward getting on DK Metcalf's nerves. You know what I mean? And like locking him down, playing him aggressively. I feel like you can get him to get like I almost expect an unsportsmanlike conduct call on DK Metcalf at some point in the game. I think this is a game where, he might get frustrated. It's going to be a road game for the Seahawks, and they couldn't take care of business at home against the 49ers. So I don't know. I'm also going to pick San Francisco in this one. I really think the keys to the game are get pressure on Geno like they do consistently, and limit Kenneth Walker. I think on the offensive side of the football, just keep doing what you're doing, but improve in the red zone offense. That's something that I didn't even mention. McCaffrey is back, and the red zone offense still hasn't taken off. Shanahan is just lacking a little bit of creativity when they get close to scoring. I think having McCaffrey maybe with his legs a little bit more under him after another week of practice will definitely help. And last year McCaffrey would get like 2 touchdowns per game, or at least a touchdown every single game. So I'm hoping that we see the return of McCaffrey getting in the end zone. It would be great for him to get his first touchdown of the season in front of the home fans, especially, before the 49ers go on a pretty tough road trip against the Packers and the Bills. So Mike, you're going to lock it in 49ers over Seahawks?
Yeah.
Oh man. My keyboard has this connectivity issue sometimes. I'm also going to lock in 49ers. We were right about last week, so I'm going to give us the green right there. We're really picking it up. We struggled at the beginning end of the year, but this is where I think that I want to say it was the Cowboys week where I said the 49ers can start to go on a little run here. I think a 3-game winning streak would be good, especially going into 2 tougher matchups on the road.
Yep.
So,
yep.
I don't know, Mike, do you have any other thoughts on the game of, any predictions or anything before we move on?
I do have one last thought, actually. And this thought actually goes into the next topic too, but, I'll mostly focus on the Niners right here. I brought this bad boy. I don't know where to hang it yet, but this is my NFL standings little magnet board, right? So I can just move stuff as the standings are. And I didn't realize, I think even last week we were talking about the NFC West. And I was like, Niners just need to take care of business against the Buccaneers, and chances are they'll be back in first place in the division, And I have to come on here and say that I was not paying enough attention to the Arizona Cardinals. And honestly, I was paying too much attention to the Rams. I really still do believe the Rams they play tomorrow against the Dolphins, which we'll get to the Dolphins in a second. But, I think the Rams still have a very good shot at having sort of a comeback to the beginning of the season and being a playoff contender. But right now, the Cardinals are in first in the NFC West, and they just beat the brakes off the Jets, which isn't really saying that much, given that it's the Jets. But they are looking better and better every week. And this is a team that has already beat the Niners this season.
Mm-hmm.
Look out for the Arizona Cardinals. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, the Cardinals are always a tough matchup for the Niners. I said it earlier this season, and they're finally playing good football again. I do want to quickly address this as soon as possible because I sound like an idiot because I said Charvarius Ward can, play DK Metcalf physically. What I should have said is that Deommodore Lenoir can play DK Metcalf very, very physically. Although the edits that I did refer to are about Charvarius Ward, but Deommodore Lenoir is also very physical, corner, and is having a great season. And I think I'm not necessarily sure if Charvarius Ward is still injured or if, I probably should know that, but I do know that they had, very unfortunate news about his daughter, who unfortunately passed away. So, I just want to, send my thoughts and prayers to Charvarius Ward and his family, and obviously his daughter. But, you never want to hear news like that. So I haven't had a chance to, or an opportunity to really talk about that. So, I'm hoping that you guys are doing okay. And it doesn't matter if you're rich, poor, anything, dealing with loss like that is never easy. So, I know the type of burden that loss can be on a family, but I don't know what it's like in that given circumstance. So, I don't want to act like I understand what Charvarius Ward or, his partner are going through. So, sending my thoughts and prayers. But aside from that, aside from Fonzie correcting me because I'm talking, nonsense over here, were you able to finish up your last point about this, Niners Seahawks game?
That was most of my last point. Was just I didn't realize the Cardinals were like right there, if not above you guys. And I mean, you guys almost lost this game to the Buccaneers, man. I think right now you might be a half game. It's like the Cardinals are like 6-5 or something like that, and you guys are what, 5-5 or?
Yeah. So as it currently
5-4?
stands, the NFC West goes as such: the Cardinals are 6-4, the Niners are 5-4, Rams 4-4, Seahawks 4-5,
and the Rams play tomorrow. And if I had to bet, I think the Rams will beat the Dolphins tomorrow. And if that's the case, they would have a tied record with you guys, but they beat you guys earlier this season. So I think the Niners would be sitting at third in the NFC West going into week 11.
Yep.
So, man.
Well, the Rams have to win first. But that being said, this game is a must-win game for the 49ers.
Yeah.
I mean, they could still very much have a high likelihood of making the playoffs, even if they drop this game to Seattle. But man, that schedule starts to get really tough.
Yeah, no, they have to start getting hot. Like the idea coming out of this bye week, last time we talked was like, all right, this is about the time when Shanahan should start getting this offense hot,
Yeah.
And McCaffrey's back, all that stuff. And they almost lost to the Buccaneers without their two star receivers on offense,
Mm-hmm.
So, I think the Seahawks arguably on offense might have more talent than the Buccaneers as it currently sits. If DK Metcalf plays, it'll be interesting. That's why I said it's kind of a toss up for me. But, this Niners team, they need to hunker down and get consistent. And, putting a full blown bow on this thing, you can't have incidences like Deebo today.
So you think that the Niners Seahawks game is going to be a toss up?
In the sense, I think it'll be another close game.
I kind of see. I think Papa J said it in the comments. If the 49ers hadn't won the way that they won against Tampa Bay, I would say that they would lose to the Seahawks. I think the 49ers are going to kick ass. I really do think that the Niners will kick the Seahawks ass. Yeah, I think that's what they've done in recent memory. They're going to be at home. They have a little bit of momentum coming off of like a late game win. Give me the Niners. I feel pretty confident about it.
I want to say the Seahawks don't have the best run defense. So, like, if McCaffrey gets going in this game, I would expect essentially a blowout. But I don't know. It's a divisional game, and I think the Seahawks have offensive star power to the point where they can, for lack of a better term, keep up with the Niners.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, I mean, that's pretty much it for Niners Seahawks. I do think Niners have to take care of business. We'll see how the Rams game goes tomorrow night against the Dolphins. Probably it'll be, well, I actually don't know if I'll even need to splice this up into its own video because we're going to be probably pretty brief on the Raiders because they didn't play this past week.
Thank God.
Yeah, Mike had a good weekend. Papa J says, I remember that, referring to the clickbaits. And that is the best draft class ever, LOL. I'm assuming that you're being sarcastic to the Raiders specific portion of the draft class because, I mean, let's recap that. Raiders 2023 draft class. But let's see here. The Raiders drafted Tyree Wilson, Trey Tucker, Christopher Smith II, Michael Mayer, Jacorian Bennett, Amari Burney, Byron Young, Aiden O'Connell, and Nesta Jade Silvera. What do you think, Mike? Is that an all-time draft class?
That's a negative. There's some highlights in there, but no.
Yeah. No, best ever, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not the best, but the best ever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see here. At this point, Arizona is clearly the better team in the NFC West. I'd say they match up well against the 49ers. I don't know if they are better than them, but just Kyler Murray is the X factor.
They're the hotter team.
Yeah. Fonzie, it was really... Oh, sorry. Let's see here. That comment wasn't for me. It was for Fonzie. Sorry. Let's see. Yeah, I think we're ready to move on, huh, Mike?
Absolutely.
Let's talk about the Raiders versus Dolphins. Are the Raiders going to come back this week, Mike? Is this bye week? Are they going to have a late season resurgence to win enough games to just barely miss the playoffs and also miss out on getting a quarterback in the draft?
I think what the Raiders should do is they should forfeit the remainder of their season and just get ready for the draft. No, okay. The Dolphins are really interesting to me because on paper, they're a really good team, and last year we watched them be a really good team. And I didn't realize how bad their season was slipping away, but I brought this bad boy out for the Niners stuff. But if you look closely, right where my hand is, right here, you got the Bills at like 8-2 or whatever they are, and then you have 3-7. I think 3-7 and 2-6. I want to say you can correct me, but point being, the Bills are winning the AFC East, and the Dolphins, they play tomorrow night on Monday Night Football. So we'll see how that goes versus the Rams. They are in the race with the Raiders for the number 1 pick.
And they might draft a quarterback.
Yeah, they might be wise.
I think they could because, all right, I feel like it would be irresponsible for them to have high draft capital and not at least draft a backup plan for Tua.
Yeah,
because there was talks this year that Tua could retire.
Yeah, at the very least, if they were wise, they would treat it like the Packers always do, with like waiting 3-4 years to you draft a quarterback in the first round, but you still have the incumbent starter still there for another 3 to 4 years. Brett Favre to Rodgers to Love. The Dolphins should absolutely do that at the very least, just to help develop a quarterback, but mostly because anytime Tua gets hurt now, it's like, yeah, that's going to take multiple weeks for him to come back if he ever does. So why wouldn't you, be safe? But point being here, as far as their record, the Dolphins are right there with us, which is so totally awesome and only makes me want the Raiders to lose more in this game. And the Raiders will be coming off the bye, whereas the Dolphins are going to be coming off a short week versus the Rams, Monday Night Football. I just want the Dolphins to win. I'm sorry. I don't know what else to say. I have to pick a team in this game. And because of how good they are on paper, I'm going to pick the Dolphins. But I get a bad feeling that the Raiders are going to win this game.
Okay, so a couple things. So it is in the Raiders' best interest to lose this game. It is in Antonio Pierce's best interest to win this game.
Yep, and everybody on the team.
Yeah.
As an organization, it's in their best interest to lose. But everybody that's making money for this team does not want to lose.
Yeah, because the more they lose, the more likely it is they'll lose their job.
Yep.
Although I kind of feel like at this point it's inevitable. I don't even know if Antonio Pierce can salvage his job unless they make the playoffs, which
Right.
isn't going to happen. That's not going to happen.
No.
So Antonio Pierce kind of coaching for his job, like maybe, because you have to think the Raiders might not be the only team that will give him an opportunity to coach. Although if I had to be a betting man, I feel like a lot of times coaches will only get one opportunity and that's it. And Antonio Pierce, this might just be his only opportunity. Time will tell. We'll see. One thing that bodes, all right. Typically, the Dolphins do not, they cannot beat winning teams, right? Fortunately for the Raiders, organizationally, the Raiders are not a winning team. Yeah. So the Dolphins, I don't know, dude. It's crazy how horrible their record is against winning teams. And they extended Mike McDaniel for a couple more years. Little premature in my opinion, because what has Mike McDaniel necessarily proven other than he is better than the coaches that were before him? I think that's for sure. There's at least a respectability to the Dolphins offense and just the way that they operate things. But there has also been massive calls to, decisions that have been called into question about Mike McDaniel and the way the entire Dolphins have handled Tua's sort of concussion history and bringing him back. And, his concussion stuff precedes this season, I think it was last year or 2 years ago where Tua took that first shot and then he was playing shortly after that.
Mm.
That being said, I don't think the concussion stuff will necessarily be too relevant in this game, but I think that the Dolphins just have too much firepower on offense to not make the Raiders, struggle on defense to contain them. And the Raiders offense, I'm sorry, they're not figuring it out this year unless did they officially name an offensive coordinator yet?
Yes, so Scott Turner is the play caller, and then they hired Norv Turner, his dad, which when they hired him, I didn't even correlate that until they said that. I was like, oh, okay, that makes more sense. He's a senior advisor to the offense, and I called it last week. Joe Philbin is the interim offensive line coach. So, new play caller, that goes into my ooh, I get a bad feeling we might win this game. It's just because there's no film now. The Dolphins can't just watch film and be like, okay, that's what they're going to do. That's their tendency. No. Maybe for a quarterback, sure, but, in theory, this offense is going to be different. If I had to guess this, at least if I were Scott Turner, I would be in no fucks given mode. I would do all the crazy shit. I would just put it all out there,
But the thing is he has to at least put something good out there because he's also, calling plays to try and get hired for his next gig, I mean, wherever it is, and eventually elevate his status in the NFL. If he just screws around and does trick plays all game and all that stuff, nobody's going to take him seriously. But one thing I do want to say, we called it. I think we looked at the coaching staff and we're like, all right, yeah, Scott Turner is going to be the clear, the clear play caller. And then I think you mentioned Joe Philbin. He is not calling plays. Who was the other candidate that we thought might be in the running to call plays, but
he has offensive line.
He has experience. He's taking on a bigger role on the team.
Yep.
So I think we called that. But yeah, I like the Dolphins in this one. So, I think we can pretty much lock that in, right, Mike?
I believe. I hope so.
They've already won. Am I right?
Yeah.
And just like usual, if anything changes, we'll let each other know before kickoff or whatever.
Yeah. I just saw that, our following game is the Broncos. I cannot believe that Chiefs game. That
I
the
didn't see
Chiefs
it.
got, dude, I was flipping between the end of the Niner game and the Chiefs game, so I don't blame you for not seeing it, but I just flipped back and it was perfect. They were lining up for the field goal. I was like, I hate the Broncos, but yes, dude, like let's kill this perfect season for the Chiefs, and like they had him dead to rights, 34-yard field goal. He's gonna sink it. They hike it. He goes up, he kicks the ball, and all I see is the left side of that line just collapse. And some dude, sprawling out, blocks the kick. I'm like, oh my God. Of course,
Dude,
these dudes. It's the Chiefs. I don't know. I don't know what they worship, but crazy.
they might have an undefeated season, and not because they're like this offensive powerhouse or anything like that. I just think that like they play every game, every sort of possession is so situational, and they execute when they need to, and they're playing winning football. They're not the greatest team of all time,
Hmm.
but
All right. Well, how about
like
this one? Uh, this upcoming weekend, which I don't know why in the hell it is not a primetime game. The Chiefs will be playing the Bills, 1:25 p.m. God, may you please protect Josh Allen and may he prosper. The following week, here's where they're going to lose: Chiefs at Panthers. Then they got the Raiders, Chargers. I think the Chargers can beat them. Then they got the Browns. Meh. Texans, yes, they can beat them. Steelers, yes, they could beat them. And then final game of the season is against the Broncos, who clearly can beat them. And maybe at that point, the Chiefs already have a bye week. They rest their starters, and at that point, they've lost to either the Steelers, Texans, or Bills, and they're not going for like the perfect season. But I think one thought I have on the Chiefs here, and then I'm pretty much done. I have seen so many teams, whether undefeated or like 8-1 or something like that at this point in the season, that are way more dominant than this Chiefs team. They're winning these games by very small margins, and it's both not dominant but also still very impressive, if not more impressive in some ways. Uh, but I think the main point for me is like they're not that dominant. They're really not. Like they are super well coached to the point where it doesn't matter. They're going to win. But I don't think because of how non-dominant they are, it's not going to happen every time. They're going to face a team like the Bills or Steelers or Texans or some random team like the Broncos and the Chargers, I think, who will beat them. And I just hope it happens in the playoffs, really. I'm tired of them. I am so tired of them.
I
And
I
just
mean
it just
everybody's tired of the Chiefs. Like this is worse than what it was like to witness the Patriots. Although I have to say the Chiefs are more of a pleasure to watch than those Patriots teams were. Like, God, dude, it was so like the Patriots dominance was so boring, and then the Chiefs like. I mean, it's a lot more interesting in my opinion, and I think like Mahomes is a lot more like fun to watch, although it's like torturing because you don't want him to win
yeah,
because he's already won enough, right?
yeah,
But like just from a football standpoint, like seeing Andy Reid coach is like it's amazing. It's amazing. But yeah, Bill Belichick coach, it's like like I get it, but he's like a defensive genius, and it's not as fun. It's not
yeah.
it's not as sexy, right?
I just wish it weren't the Chiefs, Chargers, or Broncos, really. Like, and I hated the Patriots because of how much they won and how dominant they were. Like, that was where my mind went, was like, I have seen so many Patriots teams that were way more dominant than this 2024 Chiefs team. Way more dominant. It's just the fact that they're going for a three-peat that it's like, dude, is this really going to happen? But like another thought that came into my head like earlier today was like, watching that Texans game, which I didn't get to watch the second half, but the Lions came back and won, which is crazy. I was enjoying the hell out of the first half of that game. And then seeing how successful the Commanders have been this season. Like CJ Stroud and Jaden Daniels are two guys who I very much, for lack of a better term, they were my guys, at quarterback at a time when I want a quarterback for my team. And like, I can't help but root for them. If the Texans or the Commanders became today's Chiefs, I don't think I'd mind it one bit. And another team is the Lions. If the Lions became that team where like they win 3 Super Bowls in the next 6 years, I would not mind it one bit. If they beat the Raiders in the Super Bowl, I'm gonna be upset. Well, if they beat the Raiders on the way,
I mean, the thing is, whoever takes that top spot and they win more than one, you get kind of tired of it quick. Like you want to see someone knock them off the block,
Right. Like, I'm always going to root for the underdog, but, like, it would be so much nicer if the underdog team could become the champion and the 3-time champion rather than, the Raiders' arch nemesis, the Chiefs, and the fucking Patriots winning 6 Super Bowls, becoming that top team. At that point, it's like, yeah, this is very annoying. And then you have teams like, I guess like the Ravens, who are always up there battling them, and they're kind of the underdog, but they can never get it done, and that's annoying.
Yeah, I just think like the way the Chiefs play, I think they have a good chance to do it. I'm not saying they will do it like 100%, but like, if they keep just like winning games the way that they do, they also get like all the calls from the officials, like. Yeah. The NFL has set them up in a way to where not only can they three-peat, they can do it with a perfect season, and then there will be all these debates, best team ever, blah blah blah, which they're not. They're not. This isn't even the best Kansas City Chiefs team that we've ever seen, But like what I have to say is, if there's one team that I could see right now today that can beat the Kansas City Chiefs in the Super Bowl, it's got to be the Detroit Lions.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
If there's one team.
Honestly, I know the Chiefs are undefeated. The Lions feel like that team this year. They feel like the special team. The game tonight is the perfect example. And I am a little bummed that I didn't watch the second half of that game because I left my dad's. I was watching it. And then, whatever. And then I came back home and I decided, actually, this is a great segue. I decided to watch the finale of the fucking Penguin. And if anybody wants a show recommendation, there it is. Okay. But I had to watch that finale because I didn't want anything spoiled if I went on TikTok or whatever. Right. But I saw the outcome of the game. I was like, are you kidding me? The fucking Lions came back from that shit. Like they just feel like that team this year between killing whoever they played like a week or two. The Titans, it was like what 54-14 or something. They destroyed them, and that wasn't until like the second half. Like they are just coming out of halftime. They are that team that's just completely different, and they will embarrass you. They will dominate you. They are the dominant team this year. That's the Lions.
Yeah, like last year it was the Niners.
Yeah.
But like one thing I'll say, you said if you need a show recommendation, anytime anybody asks for a show recommendation, the answer is always Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. So forget the Penguin. Don't watch that unless you've already seen Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. So yeah, just had to dunk on you right there. Let's see here. I can tell how much you want to strangle me right now because you like the Penguin.
Yeah, I would say you should watch it.
I should.
You should.
After I rewatch Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul for another time. No, just fine. No, I'll get to it. Fonzie says, did you guys see the clip with Crosby and James Harden? Crosby looked a little small next to him, mass-wise. I didn't see the clip, but when I saw your comment, I decided to pull up the photo. And yeah, I mean, maybe in the clip it shows Harden a little bit bigger. Let's see. This is from January this year, so I don't know.
Yeah, it's probably not the same. I mean,
but Harden does look bigger
Crosby
than him.
He does?
Yeah, I mean Crosby looks a lot skinnier. You know what I mean?
I'd say in the
Crosby
legs, yeah.
looks like a guy that could be working at a gas station. You know what I mean? And then
Crosby's literally taller than him.
well, yeah, taller, but lankier.
Yeah. I would
You know
just
what I
say
mean?
black is always very slimming.
Yeah, true. So James Harden, stop
Wear
wearing
some
white.
black, man. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's see. Wait, the Raiders moved to Las Vegas? Since when? Just kidding. They're not that irrelevant yet. Yeah, I mean, a couple more years of barely missing the playoffs and all right, this has been 20 years now of the same shit for the Raiders.
We are now on, I think, year 20 since they have won a playoff game.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Yeah.
Because 2003 should be the last time they won a playoff game. If not, actually, January or February, December of 2020. God damn. 2002. Jesus.
Mike's over here having a brain aneurysm. Thanks, Papa J.
Yeah.
Mike just found out for the first time that the Raiders moved to Las Vegas as well. He can't even get the words together.
I just found out for the first time that they've actually won a playoff game in their history. In my lifetime.
Papa J says, what the Raiders need is a great veteran quarterback that can help them develop a prospective rookie. It rarely works out having a rookie be the starting quarterback. Well, I'd say Jaden Daniels, CJ Stroud, but in terms of historically, probably.
Yeah, I mean, I know Derek Carr had Matt Schaub. I'm curious what veteran quarterback that would be because it's not Gardner Minshew, you know. Mm-hmm. So
it's Jimmy Garoppolo.
I know, it's funny, that was the first name that I thought of was I could have saw it a year or two ago, but I don't know who you get for that. Like a Russell Wilson makes sense, but he's looking great for the Steelers right now, man.
Joe Flacco.
I mean, yeah, Joe Flacco if he's still in the league at that point. Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to really look at who's available in free agency next season.
It's going to be Danny Dimes.
I don't think he's going to be helping a rookie quarterback very much.
Yeah, he can't even help himself.
Yeah.
Papa J says, are the Raiders going to let Crosby go? No, they are not. They are. I don't think they'll ever trade him.
Yeah, Mark Davis seemed pretty honest when he came out in public, I think a couple weeks ago, saying yeah, no, that shit's not happening.
The Raiders need a great veteran like Trey Lance.
How'd he look tonight?
You know, Mike, I think it's November 11th, 2024, and I think I can probably say I think I'm out on Trey Lance. I think, I wish that I could have seen him play a little bit more at when he first got into the league, but I don't know. I don't think that he's beyond repair because there are flashes of good playmaker, but if he can't consistently get playing time to get settled in, I just don't think it's going to happen. I saw him. I mean, all right, here's the thing. Today he played against the Eagles defense, which is really good, and Lance didn't start the game, so he kind of had to man a sinking ship. So I'll give him that benefit of the doubt, but I don't know. Initially, you know this, and nobody else really knows this, but initially in that draft class, There is a Facebook Messenger message that I sent to Mike. I was least impressed with Trey Lance in that draft class. Right?
Mm.
But then once Lance got drafted to the 49ers and I saw, like, you know, I just sort of fell in love with his personality. And so I thought he was a good kid. And I still think that, you know, he's a good kid and everything. I feel like he got drafted to the worst scenario possible for him because he really needed to play in order to grow. And, you know, instead it just wasn't in the cards for him. He was injured a couple times his rookie year, and then was injured big time the year that he was supposed to take over as the starter and where he was supposed to take that leap. And now he hasn't started back-to-back games in football since 2019, which was 5 years ago. Like at a certain point, it's like the window has kind of shut for him, and there was no guarantee that he was going to work out to begin with. I had hopes for him. I still think he's a really good kid, and he should keep trying. I don't think he should give up because maybe he will show the Cowboys something if he starts over Cooper Rush in the coming weeks against easier matchups than this. They played the Steelers, right?
Hey,
Or no, the Eagles. Sorry.
Dak Prescott is out for the remainder of the season, so you know Trey Lance very much has his best shot at getting that shot right now.
This is his shot right now. This might be the last opportunity that he gets to start games in the NFL.
Yeah, if Cooper Rush, I don't know what happened that provoked Lance to get in this game other than getting blown out. But like if Cooper Rush is or was or next week is that bad, yeah, I don't like at that point the Cowboys would be wise to start the former third overall pick.
I think they should just do it now. See what you have. You have to make a decision in the offseason. You've seen Cooper Rush sort of extended. Cowboys are not going anywhere without Dak Prescott. And even with Dak Prescott, they were not going anywhere.
Yeah.
So see what you have. And, you know, they already declined Lance's fifth-year option, but maybe you can get him at a discount, you know?
Yeah, I think...
Or maybe they want to just hide him. If they really feel highly about him, they want to just hide him, possibly re-sign him, and, you know, get him at a discount and don't let his price go up the way that Jimmy Garoppolo's did in 2017, where he went from a guy who just got traded for a second-round pick to becoming, you know, after 5 games, becoming the highest-paid player in NFL history.
Yeah.
So I don't know. But at a certain point, Lance needs to play for his development. Why would they want to keep him at all if he doesn't play and develop?
Yep.
Norv Turner, awesome. Norv Turner was there for Alex Smith. I remember his sorry ass. Says Fonzie. How about Saleh for head coach? I think for the Raiders, they need to go, in my opinion, they need to go offensive mind, like a Ben Johnson. But why would Ben Johnson want to leave Detroit for the Raiders at this given moment?
Agreed.
Lance, they need Jesus. In terms of the Raiders.
They do.
All right, let's see here. Saleh would be a good pickup for the Raiders. Yeah, like if you could pair Saleh with an offensive mind, I think that would be great. You know,
I would kill for Saleh to be our defensive coordinator next year. And you know
Saleh,
I like Patrick Graham, but you know, I'd be great. That would be great.
Saleh is a great leader. He leads by example. I think he's terrific. I have fond memories of him as a Niner. I really liked him on Hard Knocks with the Jets. The only thing, though, is the reason why teams should typically try to go for offensive-minded coaches is because you can keep you can maintain continuity in the offense if you have an offensive play calling sort of head coach. Whereas if you have a defensive minded head coach and your offense is good, those play callers are going to get hired elsewhere as head coaches. And then you're going to have to constantly be switching the offense. And so I don't know, like that's just my opinion on it. And I think, Bill Walsh was so good. Andy Reid is so good. There's clearly something to that, Gonna take these. I'm going to try to rapid fire these comments. I do like this comment. This is an interesting one. Papa J says, I would kick out Kyle Shanahan and bring in John Gruden. I think from a personality standpoint, it's not even close. John Gruden is the much more likable guy. Shanahan's kind of like a boring, bland sort of guy. Hey, John Gruden has won a Super Bowl. Kyle Shanahan has not. So that's one way to look at it. When they were both last in the NFL right now, I think Shanahan's stock was higher at the time. I don't know what it would be now, but I mean, hey, I like John Gruden a lot. I think he'd be interesting. And, I saw a thumbnail, talking about clickbait thumbnails. It's not clickbait because it's true, but he's like, I stole Joe Montana's playbook, So, hey, he's looking in the right place. Papa J's frustrated with Kyle. Papa J says, I'm ready to replace Kyle with Condoleezza Rice. Excuse me for being uncultured, but I don't get that reference.
Yeah. She's like a politician or something.
Oh, well, apparently it's like having something to do with Dave Chappelle. Condoleezza Rice sounds like a Mexican dish. Dave Chappelle. It's funny. Let's see. Papa J sees Houston being a big factor in the AFC for the next 5 years. Yeah, I think Mike does too. I think he'll be, I think they'll be pretty good as long as Stroud can, adjust with defenses adjusting to him. Fonzie says, proud of the 49ers. Let's see. We do have a Rams fan in the comments section. I do appreciate you checking out the channel, even though you are repping the wrong team. But the name is kind of ironic. Rams owns Santa Clara, when it's actually quite the opposite. The 49ers, every single time they go to SoCal, they are the majority of the fans inside the stadium. It's always predominantly red. It's Levi South, but hey, man, I mean, good luck tomorrow night. I hope that you guys lose, but no, in all seriousness though, thank you. I know you're not a fan of the 49ers or the Raiders, but we talk pretty much, football here. So we appreciate that. Let's see. It's not trolling. It's facts, playa. Talking, that's replying to Papa J. That's funny. Let's see. Houston is not supposed to be as good as the Lions, but they almost beat them. It just goes to show that the NFC has nothing on the AFC. I think the Lions.
Sorry, I'm reading other comments. This is great.
Yeah.
You got to go up the past two comments before this. That's classic. That is a great get back. Oh, my God. Sorry.
What?
Do this comment first. Do it. Sorry. Yeah. Okay, let's do this.
So Fonzie says, at Rams owns Santa Clara. How about the fact that your stadium is mostly red when we come to town? And Rams own Santa Clara says, Fonzie and your fans go home sad.
God. That's
hey,
good.
I'm a Niner fan. All right. Hey, Fonzie, you guys were both cooking there, but I have to say that it's a good clapback. Although, if you actually support it with facts, besides that NFC Championship game and besides the game that we blew earlier this year, it hasn't been that way. So, yeah. Not to bring up bad memories for 49er fans, but yeah, let's see. Let's see. It's getting heated in the comments over here. I see a Diddy reference, and I'm like, man, what the hell happened over here? Let's see. Saleh versus Harbaugh would be fire. Let's see. The more I think about it, the more I think John Gruden is a good pick to replace Kyle. I mean, he's not the worst pick, that's for sure. I wouldn't give him the contract that the Raiders gave him, though. You know, in retrospect, how bad that contract is, Mike. They're still paying for it.
Yeah, that's a whole other conversation. Yeah.
Papa J says Condoleezza Rice was actually considered to take the head coaching job for Cleveland Browns. She was a politician under the George Bush era. Hey, the more I know. Thank you for letting me know that. And thank you for everybody. Thank you for everybody who tuned in to the stream. I want to give a special thank you to Papa J, Fonzie, even Ramzone Santa Clara. I don't like the name, and I don't like the team that you're representing, but thank you for checking out the channel. And let's see, shout out to Pia, and was there anybody else who I'm missing right now who also tuned in and comment? I'm so sorry if I can't think of it off the top of my head or find it right now, but honestly, today was a great show. It was, a pleasure taking all your guys' comments. And, please consider following us on Twitter at silver_goldpod. I guess formerly on X. I'm going to keep saying that every single time because Elon Musk decided to make a horrible mistake in renaming it. Papa J says, thanks, guys. Good night, guys, from Fonzie. Yeah, no, hope you guys both have a great night. It's almost 1 o'clock in the morning over here, but we're still pumped. It's a great show. And we'll catch you guys on the next one. Have a great weekend. Well, have a great week. Sorry. We'll talk next weekend. That's what I meant.
Go Dolphins.